The people that make it over the hill are those with great cooling engines whose temperatures are running great. The ones that don't make it over that hill are the ones that have the thermometer on their engine running hot. Those are the ones that poop out at the top and can't make it. And they're the ones pulled over to the side of the road with the hood up and the steam coming out of the engine. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Of course, yeah.
So this makes perfect sense to me why I wasn't seeing what they were predicting, which is these respiratory patients coming into the ICU. Who was I seeing in the ICU? I was seeing people with dementia, as we talked about, diabetes, kidney disease. These are the ones that were sick. The other thing that really hit me and resonated with this was, and this was not even controversial. We knew early on in the pandemic that people who came into the hospital and had higher levels of vitamin D did really well. They didn't die. They didn't have the same chances of dying. People who had low vitamin D levels, they had much higher chances of dying. So we would check these vitamin D levels. And so think about this. You're there at ground zero, and you're taking care of these patients, and you see this data over and over and over again, that vitamin D is very predictive of who's going to die. Obviously, what are you going to do? Even though this is an associative study, that association doesn't mean causation, you're going to be giving people vitamin D and try to get those levels up. The problem is that we gave vitamin D and it really didn't have much of an effect. So
you gave it in supplement tablet form?
When people would come into the hospital.
Like this?
Exactly, just like that. In fact, I was supplementing myself. I mean, what have you got to lose, right? I already took my vitamin D tablet this morning. That's very hard to overdose, but it's possible.
So you noticed that it was hard to treat people with vitamin D, but giving them a tablet didn't really do much.
That's correct.
Why?
Well, this is what I believe is the fact, is we saw that people with high levels of vitamin D or normal levels of vitamin D did better than those that had low levels. I believe that was a marker of something else. In other words, people who had higher levels of vitamin D meant that they were out in the sun more. They were outside more than the people that had very low vitamin D levels. The people with low vitamin D levels were telling me these are people that were not getting outside into the sun. And so what's the real factor here? What's doing the heavy lifting? And I would propose, and Scott Zimmerman and Russell Ryder would propose, and I can tell you a number of other scientists that would agree with me on this, is that infrared radiation from the sun is causing an effect at the mitochondrial level in terms of oxidative stress, and that vitamin D was just the marker of who was getting the infrared light and who was not, who was going outside and who was not going outside. So when the sun is shining, for the most part, you're getting infrared light, you're getting the entire biological spectrum from the sun. We can go to the longest wavelength, which is far infrared, all the way to the shortest wavelength, which is ultraviolet B, okay, which makes vitamin D. So in other words, when you are outside in a natural environment, you're getting a very broad spectrum of light. And so because of that, if you're getting infrared light, you're also going to be making vitamin D.
Yeah.
You're getting both. Now, that can change because in the wintertime, when the sun is lower in the sky, especially in England, this is a special issue at that latitude. When the sun is low in the sky, the light has to penetrate obliquely through the atmosphere. And because of that, shortwave radiation from the sun, like ultraviolet B, does not make it very well. So there's times of the year where you're not getting enough ultraviolet B, or maybe even no ultraviolet B from the sun.
Which makes the vitamin D.
Which makes the vitamin D, and that you're going to be deficient. You need to supplement. However, during that same period of time, when you're not getting enough vitamin D because there's no ultraviolet B radiation, that sun is low, but it's still enough to allow that long wavelength penetrating infrared light to still come through.
So is the long wave infrared light the type of thing that we see these gadgets doing?
Absolutely. And I would say, just to be specific, is because you can see that as red light there, that's not infrared light because you can see it. So infrared light technically is completely invisible.
But this these do give out infrared light, but you just can't see it.
Exactly. So it's toward that red end of the spectrum. And people like Glenn Jeffrey out of UCL is actually doing research at 670 nanometers of red light and has shown in randomized controlled trials that that type of light right there at 670, the type that you can even see, actually does improve mitochondrial efficiency. He's shown this in a number of randomized controlled trials. It improves eyesight, and you have to realize that the retina at the back of your eye is very rich in mitochondria. He's shown this in terms of managing glucose and output from mitochondria. And the reason why these things work so well is because what's going on here is as you get older, your skin starts to become more saggy because the fibroblasts, or the cells in your skin, they're designed to make collagen. And collagen is the skeleton that makes your skin soft and subtle. Yeah.
Don't mind me, please carry on.
No. So this is exactly it. My wife uses the same thing.
This is a bond charge one.
So what's going on right now is that red light, which can penetrate very deeply down, is going into the skin, and it is activating the mitochondria in your fibroblasts to produce more energy, which those cells need to deposit collagen. And so when you deposit collagen, that's going to give the skin a more tight feel, because as you get older, that collagen deposition is going to get less and less and less.
So this is going to help keep me looking young.
That's the whole point of it.
And you're saying that the light in these penetrates, 6 or 7 centimeters? Or is it?
Infrared does about 8 centimeters. This red light would be a little bit less because this light, obviously you can see it, so it is a little bit shorter wavelength. But yes, this light, the red light, can penetrate deeper than, for instance, yellow light or blue light. And it's this light particularly that interacts with the mitochondria to increase that.
So should we be putting this all over our body? Because, okay, it's good for my skin, but if it's penetrating deeper, presumably there's other parts of my body that would benefit from that, and other mitochondria.
It's interesting you say that. The study that I'm referring to with Glenn Jeffrey out of University College London, he took young people in this study. He gave them a bunch of glucose. And everybody who gets a bunch of glucose should have a spike in their blood sugar. He randomized them on their backs to see what would happen when he shined red light on their backs. And the people that got the red light had lower spikes. In other words, it seemed as though the mitochondria were metabolizing faster, which caused less of a spike of the glucose in their blood. The way he confirmed that is looking for the byproducts of the mitochondrial metabolism, which is carbon dioxide. So when we breathe, when we metabolize, we're breathing out carbon dioxide, which is the result of a mitochondrial metabolism. And in fact, in those people that had the light on, it showed a higher level of carbon dioxide in the exhaled breath. The whole point of that is to get back to your question is whether we should be putting this all over your body. He was able to get that effect systemically with just putting the light on the back. That was a systemic ability. We don't understand everything about the mitochondria, but what we do seem to understand is that they can communicate with each other, and that you don't need to have this all over the body to have systemic effects. In this particular case, though, if you want to have the skin here to be more, younger looking, then it makes sense that this is where you need to have it. If you want to have a particular other part of your body to look younger, then perhaps that's where the light needs to go.
So interesting. So how long did it take in those studies to see the effect of red light therapy like this?
Well, that's a very good question. If you talk to Glenn Jeffrey, which I have, he noticed an improvement in 15 minutes.
15
minutes.
What did he notice in 15 minutes?
He said he has studied the mitochondria in fruit flies, and in mosquitoes and bees, and in human beings, and it's the same every time. He says after about 15 to 20 minutes of this type of light in that type of setting, there is a switch that turns on, and you don't need further stimulation. Further stimulation doesn't do anything more. It's a very bizarre thing. You would think that the more light that you gave, the more the effect would be. It's not. After about 15 minutes, there's something that changes in the mitochondria. There are certain theories about where this might be. This might be in the electron transport chain, complex 4. These are very technical things. There's a lot of studies that are there's a number of groups that are actually looking at this. There's a whole area of science called photobiomodulation, which is looking at this. But 15 minutes is really what it takes. So we're not talking about a long period of time. This is really interesting. So getting back to my
飞利浦 Sonicare，别只是刷牙，更要呵护。